running fully online as we load up Draco model as part of the Draco Software Codes dev effort. We've been making great progress on this project the last couple of weeks, so I am happy to see some of the things really coming together. So this is our last set of pages that we closed with last week. Give me just a second here. I also want to open up chat for folks on LiveCoding. So I want to pull them up. And let's see here. Just pop that out. So I have a chat window to the crew, even though nobody's online yet. I will say that we have launched, as of this week, a new Patreon page, which I'm excited about. So I know that we don't have a huge number of people. Oh, there we go. And yeah, we're launching our Patreon page right now. I just hit the launch button. And oh dear. Well, I'm going to go ahead and take this. Oh no. Well, never mind. Maybe our Patreon page isn't as I had wanted. Oh, patreon.com/Dracolich. Save changes. There it is. Actually, you know what, even better? Draco Software. Save changes. Alright. Now it's up and working. Patreon.com/Draco Software is our new Patreon page for working applications that go, and so you can come here and you can say, hey, wow, this is actually a semi-useful thing that isn't a total turd, or maybe it is currently a total turd and I want to help pay for the servers so that the guy who made this won't let this be a total turd. So please, by all means, go to patreon.com/Draco Software and pledge. And so every week when we do one of these videos, except for I think next week is the 4th of July, and I won't be broadcasting on the 4th of July because I'm in the U.S., which is a U.S. holiday. But you can go to patreon.com/Draco Software, sorry. And you can see our awesome Patreon page and the stuff that we're making, and we don't have any sponsors yet because we've been live for the last 2 minutes, and so we're just trying to pay for the servers and help keep this thing going and motivate folks, motivate me to keep building this for folks. So that's the Patreon spiel. Of course, I'm going to continue to make these videos and post them so that they are publicly available. So, if you aren't in a place where you can be a Patreon patron, right now, that's totally fine. Just, go out there, hit the favorite, hit the smiley, and share with a friend. So for those who are new, who aren't super psyched up about this project yet and don't know why they might want to be super psyched up about this project, what we're doing is we're creating an application that helps people build other applications. So when we talk about that, I'm going to give an example here. So we're going to go ahead and create a model, and so we're going to call this our checking model, right? So we're creating a checking system, old school way of transferring money between people. I know it's arcane and not many people use it anymore, but what the heck ever. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to create an entity, and then I'm going to wonder why I am not seeing anything in my JavaScript page. That's fun. There's a bug. So we're going to go ahead and in our checking system, and we're going to create an entity for check, right? And so every check has a check number, which is an integer, right? And then an account, which is probably a string, or it could be a string of numbers, something like that. We'll just use string for now. Date written, so this would be the check the date was written, unsurprisingly, right? Date cached, which is also going to be another date, and maybe an amount, right? That would make sense. That's going to be a decimal number, and memo, right? So maybe you have something to say about it. Oh, yes, and pay to, and that's also going to be a string, right? So here we have a check, and we have all of these fields. I'm going to go ahead and refresh this page. Ah, there it is. There's our check. All right, so clearly I had a bug somewhere that something didn't get initialized in the right order. But so we have a check with a check number, account, date written, cached, amount, memo, and pay to. And that's as we would expect. And maybe, in fact, we can add a new entity, and we're going to call it payee. Right, and we're going to have a name, and that's going to be a string, and maybe an optional account number, which would be another string, right? And so this pay to field, we're going to actually, instead of making that a string, we're going to make that a reference over to payee. And so now we have a check and we have a payee, which is wonderful. And so we've been able to, in like 3 minutes, just write up this rough checking system. So now what we can do, what's really awesome about this, is we can just click MySQL, and then it downloads the file checking.sql, and here it is. This is totally legitimate operational JavaScript, or MySQL database code, right? Created a database. If it doesn't exist, checking, and then it creates a check table with check ID, the check number, account, date written, date cached, as well as some overhead fields. When is this row active? When was it created? That kind of thing. So those are all kind of overhead fields that end up in here. And then the payee table, again, an internal ID, name, account number, and then those overhead fields of whether or not it's active and when it was created. In this case, we don't have any kind of crazy cross-referencing things going on here. But this is an actual operational MySQL database. And then if we wanted to, we can pull open HTML Bootstrap. This is what we've been working on. This is what we're going to continue to work on this evening. So we're going to go ahead and go to our downloads page. Oh, and I didn't clear it out. Hold on. I'm just going to delete all that junk and generate again. That's how easy it is. All right, and then so now we can have this index.html, which isn't going to show anything because it's not being served. Because I'm just browsing to it, but we can go ahead and open that in gedit. So here's the payee, and you can see here's all the HTML, and then there's the name of the payee and the account number for the payee, and we can do the same thing with check as well, right? We can open that in gedit, and so we can see check number, account, date written, date cached, and we can start seeing that there's all of these fields that have HTML elements, so that you don't have to manually write all of that boring code yourself, that it gets automatically generated for you. So that's the rough idea of what we're doing and why we're doing it. Because really, you shouldn't have to write these date validation routines and the user interface for a date a zillion times over. Like, that's been done. It's just that it hasn't been applied to your particular problem. So this is where you just define what your classes are, and then it uses boilerplate code to auto-generate the boring stuff so that you can go ahead and focus on what it is about your application that makes it interesting. So you can focus on the business logic and then any user interface refinements that you might need. But you leave some of the standard stuff, like, again, validating dates, to the application, because that stuff is boring and we shouldn't be spending our time writing really boring redundant code and introducing errors in really boring redundant code. So where are we? We have our HTML Bootstrap stuff. We are downloading, we are serving that just fine. So I want to take those downloads. I double generated. These are the files that we had previously generated. And I'm going to serve them to myself. So I'm going to go home and development, Draco Software Home, Draco Model Test, and I'm going to put those files in there. And so now I am going to refresh this. Okay, and so here's the check stuff that we just wrote, right? Check number, account, date written, date cached, amount, and memo. Again, this has taken us all of like 5 minutes. And so now we have a form that we can fill out and enter all that data. What we don't have is any kind of validation on these fields. So the date cached has an appropriate limit to the number of characters that you can type, but it's not using any kind of validation. So that's what we're going to tackle tonight, so that our generated code is able to really be more and more potent. So HTML5 has some specific things that we can add to our input fields, such as pattern, right, which provides a regular expression for an input field that it's checked against. So we are going to go ahead and use the pattern field, and we're going so that when we generate our code, we will generate it with the proper pattern tags. All right. So let's see here. HTML bootstrap. So that's an index page, a page for each structure, and a page for each enumeration. That's appropriate. That's what enums pages are. That's what an entity page looks like. Here we go. So we create a form. We create some HTML text for each item in that form, and then we create a submit button. So we're going to just dive down here a little bit. Okay, render HTML input, and then render HTML form group. So we're going to go into this render HTML input. And here we go. So max length statement. All right, so we start off blank, and we're going to do something very similar. So we're going to say var pattern statement is equal to blank, because for some input types, addresses and strings in particular, we're not necessarily going to need a pattern, right? We're not going to force a pattern. So we're going to start off blank, and then for some of these we have exceptions. So there's a default max length of there's a default lack of max length, and then there's a bunch of initialization, and then this is where we actually render the form control with the ID, the member name, and the max length statement. So we will also add in the pattern statement, right? All right, so now we need to get this max length statement, right? We start off as an empty string. If the max length comes through and it is a number, then we use that to generate this max length statement. We're going to do something similar for the regular expression, except for we're going to do it off of the data type of this member. So we're actually going to create another function, and so we're going to say var render input pattern. Actually, we're not rendering in that case. We're just going to say input pattern, and we're going to pass in a member. No, that's var input pattern equals function, right? And we pass in a member, and we are going to, by default, we're just going to return an empty string. All right. So now we're going to look at HTML input patterns for, say, we're going to start simple. We're going to start with an integer, something like that. So HTML input pattern integer. And so I'm going to guess it's going to be range 0 to 9 plus. Going to be fairly... Yeah, see, no, that's not what I'm looking for at all. Okay, so pattern. Okay, so it looks like they have the decimal. You know what? Hold on a sec. Can I use input pattern? Can I use input pattern? Yes. Yes, I can. All right. So the only place that it doesn't work right now is Opera Mini and IE8. I don't actually give a crap about IE8. Sorry, IE8 people. Partial support in Safari. And iOS Safari. I don't really care. Okay, Safari browsers support the pattern attribute. Will still allow forms to be submitted if the pattern is incorrect. That's actually okay. It's not ideal, but you should always be checking these patterns on the server anyway, so that's really quite fine. All right, so yeah, let's take a look at, see if we have some definitions for the regular expression dictionary used for this, because I've seen more than a couple. Okay, so this is, all right, so 0 to 9 plus. That's actually what I would be looking for. That's the kind of pattern that I prefer instead of using key letters like a D. All right. Mem dot. All right, and let's make sure that data type is a function. Okay. So data type is a function. So based on that case, let's see here, data types, they are all starting with a lowercase, which they should. All right, so if it is an integer, return. So I want to do 0 through 9, and that's not an element that I care about. So I'm going to just do 0 through 9 and more than 1. Yes. We're not going to make any requirements as to whether or not it's required or not for now. So instead of the plus says it's going to need at least 1 character, the star says 0 or more characters. So this is going to be any string of 0 or more digits from 0 to 9. And so that would get generated. Now, our test example, do we have, okay, so our check number is an integer, and so would generate that code. All right, so now if our import pattern, all right, so we have that. If pattern statement is not blank, then the pattern statement is really, we're going to start with a space and then the word pattern, and then we will take the actual pattern statement and stick it in the middle there. So now we're just decorating that string with a little bit of other stuff to HTMLize it, and then make sure that it will go in here nicely with everything else. So all of these things that you can see here, right, is like the max length statement. Is going to create a space first and then have the HTML max length statement. And I'm just moving these around to keep them together. All right, so now with luck, this will allow us, once we refresh our page, we're going to load up our checking application again here. And now when we render, oh, look at that. All the references are good. Oh, hey, Blackburn 1911, welcome. Let's see. So now we're going to render to HTML Bootstrap. Gonna fire up, oh, that's on our test folder. You know what? Let me fire up another thing so that these are side by side and move that to a different workspace and move that with it. So now we have easy way to go from downloads and moving over there. And now we refresh our checking page, and with luck, our check number, right? It likes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then if I type in ABC, it does nothing. All right, well, let's see here. So the input type is text, class is form control, ID is check-check number, and the placeholder is check number, and that is it. And I am not seeing where this should have hit. Oh boy. So, you know, I'm going to do console.log mem data type. See if I can get a better idea of what's going on here. And let's see, I'm going to use mem, not mom. 1911. That is going to be a quick little marker so that I can find the piece of code that I'm looking for. All right, let's try this again. Checking. All right, and render code, HTML Bootstrap. Yes. All right, move that over there. Refresh the checking thing. Console says nothing. Oh wait, sorry, it would be the console over here. 1911, sure enough, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, yeah, that makes sense. Each one of these got a call to that. So sure enough, that placeholder worked and was fired a number of times. And so now we will inspect the statement, and nothing. Fail. Let's go check this again, because that was part of 191, and then our data type here is an object. It's not just the name. Okay, I know where I have gone wrong. All right, so that's an object dot name. Now I'm fairly confident. Semi-confident. I should never really be confident. You people have been watching me long enough to know that I will still find a way to screw this up. It's okay. I'm good with it. Render code, HTML Bootstrap. Delete the stuff in the current test. Grab that, put that there. Refresh the page. Inspect the element. Ah, here we go. Pattern is 0 to 9, more than 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Seems to like it. ABC. Doesn't seem to do anything. Save. No. Okay. So, the pattern went. But it doesn't seem to actually do anything. So I guess let's take a look at Let's take a look at the pattern attribute and figure out how it's supposed to work, because there is the country code. The pattern attribute works with the following input types. Yep. Oh, that's right. There's an input type for date now. Right, that must contain 6 or more characters. Yeah, that's great, but it doesn't actually... pattern attribute input tag is not supported in Internet Explorer 9. Okay, and it doesn't also seem to work in Chrome. Because I mean, I'm entering it even here, and I'm not getting any feedback. Form validation with the pattern attribute. Right, input pattern. Right, so this is just not... Set custom validity. Ah, the on-invalid event. Okay. So now that means that we're going to start having to get into some of our JavaScript. And that's not something that we wanted to do right now. All right, so what we're seeing is, or what it's showing me, yeah, submit 6 or more characters. Oh, okay. Please match the requested format, 6 or more characters. All right, so that appears to be on submit. Nope, still didn't work. Why doesn't it work for me? Oh, well. Might help if I'm hitting the right save button. Okay. Please match the requested format. All right. So that does actually work. It's not super awesome usable. But it does actually go. Right, I would definitely like to have feedback earlier to the user, but it does at least provide us with the regular expression in our code and some level of user interactivity. All right. So what does that mean? Where do we need to go from here? Well, first of all, this date written and date created. I forgot that HTML5 provided a date format because I'm old school. So we're going to do var render date input equals function. Nope, not function. Model entity member. And let's see here. Okay. So we're just going to start real basic with having an output and a qualified name, right? And then we're adding something to that output, and we return that output. All right, and input type date, right? Or is it just a date? No. Yeah. HTML5 input date. That should actually just be input type text, password, blah, 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 input type submit, radio, checkbox, button, date. Yeah. See, these are nice. Date time. Oh, email. That's an official thing now. So that's already handled for me. Oh, yay. Tel, I'm guessing, is telephone. Time, URL, and week. That has made our life way easier, actually. That means that there's a whole lot of manual HTML that we don't have to write anymore. Thank you, HTML5. I'm a little out of date here. All right. So what are we going to do for a date? So we have the input type of date, form control, ID. Don't necessarily need the placeholder or the max length statement or the pattern statement because we have the input. Oh, geez. That needs to be self-closing tag. All right, so actually, we are going to do a render simple input, and now we're going to do that based on memory, or sorry, member. Right, so instead of date input, we have render HTML input, render simple input, and so now we're going to do data type name, because I think we're going to actually use some of the exact same names that these HTML5 input types. So I think date, time, email, I think those are exactly. Email is exact. Now, date, I used timestamp instead of date time. Generally, I separate date and time from one another, though. All right, well, that's okay. Var HTML input type is equal to that. And then switch based on that. And then we'll say HTML input type. So then case date HTML input type is equal to mem.data type name break. So now we can reuse that for date, email, so we're just going to cascade date, email, time, right? So those all just cascade. And then if I do timestamp, which is one of my terms, then we use their date time. Right, that's the HTML5 one. Color, I don't have an entry for, which I should actually think about that. Date time local. Yeah, not worried. Email. Got month, I don't have it as an entry thing. Number. Okay, so that's interesting. So if I do, I don't know. I don't know if I trust them to do numbers right, but so actually, yeah. So if it's an integer, in our system, then it is a number. If it is a decimal in our system, then it's going to come out as a number in the HTML standard. Range, I'm not worried about. Search, I'm not worried about. Phone, they call it tel. I'm assuming tel is for telephone. Week, time, date time, local, email, search, tel. Yes. That's fine. Except for it's not supported. It's only supported in Safari, which is not one that I actually really care about. Not enough people use it. URL, I believe, was... Go away. Yep. URL is just a simple pass-through. And then week is another one that's not really anything practical at all. All right, so date, time, email, and URL. We just, the HTML version or my version are basically the same thing. For us, we have decimal and integer, which are a little more refined, but we can just use the number validator. That should at least start off fine. And then timestamp will be a date time. So then we just take that, translate it to the HTML variant, and we plop that in our form. That's fine. So now here, string, integer, decimal, email, and URL. So unknown and string, those get the standard, the HTML input. These ones, though, don't. These are now render simple input. So integer, decimal, email, URL, date, time, phone. Doesn't help me with booleans or addresses. We'll try it out. Let's see how this does. This is actually kind of exciting. It simplified my code dramatically. Checking. Blah, 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 blah. That looks good. We render the code to Bootstrap. Go over here, get rid of our current test files. We put up all new test files. Yay, generated code. refresh our checking thing. And all right, so account, yeah, all right, check number. All right, it likes that. Maybe. Oh, I can't type letters at all now. Oh, that's much better. I like that much, much more. Okay. Excellent. Then the account, I can type in whatever I want because it's a string. Date written. Sure. Let's do. I don't know what's today's date. Probably wrong. Date cached, right? But that's a nice date thing, and then it has a drop down where I can. Oh yes, I'm almost. Yeah, I'm like half a week off. All right, whatever. $103.45. Not bad. So I shouldn't be able to do the 6 in there, but again, as a basic, the idea is that we're getting the basics done and out of the way. This is a memo, right? And so then, enter a valid. Okay, please enter a valid value to the nearest thing. Okay, so it doesn't like decimals in the HTML5 input number decimal. It's not a bug. It takes additional attributes, min and step, which constrain the range of values in your input. Min attribute is fairly obvious. Minimum value can be. Step attribute is less intuitive. All right, so for an integer, the step is going to be 1. And so a step is going to be 0.01. Or I can set a step to any. No, I think in this case I'm going to want the step to be 0.1, because then if they try to go more and more decimals, except for, So this is one of the places where we start getting out of generic application development, right, and generic model development versus our particular checking application. For the purposes of creating generic code that will allow us to quickly render a prototype site and do what we need to do, we should allow any decimal number in a decimal field. For this particular checking application, a step of 0.1 would absolutely make more sense. There might be some other kinds of accounting or investment software, though, that goes to 4 decimal places. So what is the proper level of decimal places? Well, it kind of depends on the application. So I don't want the code that my system generates to make those decisions for you. I want to do a best guess that's going to be appropriate in 90% of the cases, that is then easy to go through and modify for the people that are actually refining the application. So we are going to look here. So when we have an integer and we have a decimal, we do want to deviate our behavior a little bit. So we're going to render simple input, and our step value is going to be, we're just going to start blank, right, and then step value is equal to any, so it's space, step equals quote any. We just add a break there so that now our decimals and our integers do act a little differently. And then here for our input type ID, and we're going to say step, and then we're going to, we don't need a space there. And then we have a step value. So we initialize it to nothing. In the case of decimal, then we say the step is any and that the input type is a number, and then this will get properly constructed. Now, in some cases, as we build these models out, we're also going to have minimum values, maximum values. Let's see here. Yeah, so var min value is equal to blank, var max value is equal to blank. So for a check, a minimum value is going to be 1 penny, because it doesn't make sense to write a check for $0, and you can't write a check for a negative amount. So in the model, actually, when we define our application, right in here, we actually have a field for amount. We have a min value. And so that is a thing. Now, how do we get that min value? Well, I don't actually remember off the top of my head. Remember, so that's multiplicity, min, max. Again, that's multiplicity. That is going to be an extended attribute. Let's see here. So now, okay, so we have our object.extended. All right, so we'll say, and then our data types, we have our extended attributes, minimum and maximum. All right, so we can see min value is equal to mem dot extended minimum, and same with max value. Max value mem. Oops. So those two, now we have a minimum value and a maximum value. We're pulling that out of our model, and that would be put into our HTML. So then we'll just do a quick check here. If min value is not equal to emptiness, then min value is equal to, so we'll start with a space. And what was the HTML attribute? I think it was just min. Yep. So yeah, min and max. All right. Just want to make sure that I was getting those right. All right. So min is equal to quote, and then min value. I don't know if these are actually working right now, although we will certainly give it a try. Not sure if I actually plugged the extended values into the database. I'm not convinced that I have. All right. So then we have step value plus min value plus max value. All right, so these are all of the custom attributes that may or may not be present in that given member. Let's give it a shot, see how we do. All right, we'll refresh this page and let's pull up our checking application. All right, and we will render code and we'll render it to Bootstrap. Now, for now, I'm just going to open this in gedit and take a look at the source here real quick. So check number is another one, actually, that should get a minimum and a maximum. But the amount. Okay, so the amount did come through. The input type is number, form control, check amount, and then the step is any because it's a decimal, and we didn't define anything more than that. So let's also I don't think minimums and maximums. Oh, look at that. Precision. We even have a precision field. That is excellent. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to do that just like the minimum and max, and so we're going to have precision. And you know what? Yes, if precision is not equal to that, then we're going to say step value is equal to step plus precision. All right. And then since that's the only place that we use that, we'll do that here. Okay. Override precision if defined. All right, so now we have step value, min value, and max value. So those are all in the model. I don't think those are getting saved to the database right now, but at least they're all in model. So we're going to refresh this page yet again, because that's what we do. I'm just glad we're pulling things out of the database instead of having to type them in every time. All right, so amount. So we're going to say a max value. We're not going to put a max value in there. A min value of 0.01, and then a precision of 0.01. So 1 penny precision, minimum value of 1 cent. And that does look like it is heading toward the database. So I don't know if our database is actually doing anything with that, but it looks like it's heading out there and it is getting saved, because we're updating this ID with that value and the property, the precision property. So in theory, it should be going to the database, although it might just not getting populated back here. All right, render code, HTML bootstrap. You know what? Let's try that again, just because I hadn't cleaned this out. Also without saving. Bring that over here. Let's look at a checking example. And let's inspect that amount. There it is. Check input type is number, class is form control, that is the check amount, and step is 0.01 with a minimum of 0.01. So now if I put in 0, hit save, value must be greater than or equal to 0.01. 0.001, value must be greater or equal to, which is excellent. And then if I say 11/10 of a cent, to the two nearest valid values are, that makes me so happy. So now in model, we were able to define what our minimum value and precision and maximum value, although we didn't use it in this case. Right, so maybe for our check number, let's go ahead and give that a max value. Maybe 1,000,000, right? You can't, an individual can't write 1,000,000 checks in their lifetime. So we're going to go ahead and delete those, bring these over so this is a little more of a test. Pull up our checking page again. Check number, hit save, and value must be less than or equal to 1,000,000. So, and then maybe check check number 9.5, and it's already complaining. This makes me very, very happy, because now all of those fields are automatically accounted for, and they have a nice interface. I really like the fact that there's drop downs and whatnot that are built into the browsers that I didn't have to enter, and it's asking me in my locality's month, day, year format, as opposed to me adjusting it for each one. I'm sure that adjusts for every user. So that's really excellent. This is wonderful set of interface features to have. So it worked. So let's make it public. Let's do this upright. We have an alpha site. It's working. Currently, everybody has unlimited access to the site and can create as many models and things as they want. You are welcome to come to the site and build stuff. Just know that it will likely get destroyed at some point in time as we move this project forward and work with the database and stuff more. Oh, I meant to check. Did that actually get loaded back into those things? Checking amount. No. Yeah, so these max, min, and precisions, we lost those, and so it's probably saved in the database but isn't getting loaded back on this page. So clearly it's not perfect. There's more for us to do. That said, we're in alpha. We know we have some bugs, but we are building out some of the functionality so that, again, you can just quickly write up, a site like this, hit generate, and it will spit out HTML, bootstrap-friendly HTML for you. So these are the forms. Now, the only other thing that I think we're missing are the versions of this page that aren't the forms. So just a nicer review, reading version of the page. Very fairly straightforward thing to do, so we'll probably just tackle that next week. And then we will also get into more of the JavaScript and things like that. Code render, HTML bootstrap code render, it's looking in great shape. The JavaScript one is functional. It's not ideal. I don't necessarily love the style of JavaScript I used for that. The basic HTML one is super basic. I'm probably going to be getting rid of that because I don't think many people are really going to use it. MySQL is fully functional. That is actually generating, so based on the model that we've created this evening, it will auto-generate completely valid MySQL database. There it is. It works. You can copy and paste that right into MySQL and it shouldn't explode. The MySQL database generation does not handle multiplicity well, so it's not perfect, but certainly for basic examples it works. So where do you go to check this out? So you can go to dracosoftware.com/Draco model, and let me double check and make sure. I believe it wants the trailing slash. It should work without it, but okay. Google login, and then it will ask you for your Google login. There it is. There it is. There's the URL. You can go ahead, so long as you have a Google App Engine, a Google login of any kind, you can go in, log in, create a model, mess around, build stuff, render code to your heart's content. So this is an alpha. We now have a Patreon page, patreon.com/DracoSoftware as of this evening, so it's like 2 hours old. And so that is where hopefully I will not be footing the bill for the servers myself. It's not terribly expensive, right? Right now I'm using Google App Engine. It's cloud-based. I don't have a huge audience, so I'm not spending huge amounts of dollars. The idea is I want to get that out there, build a sponsor base, see what people are interested in as I start adding features. And then also as bonus, if you do $3 or more, you will get unlimited access to create as many models as you want. Right now, that's true for everybody, but in the sooner or later, I'm probably going to nail that down a little bit so that not just anybody can create an unlimited number of models all the time. What else? nothing else. So let's go ahead and deploy the code that we've written this evening. So this is my Google App Engine window, and I'm going to deploy. And apparently it has my credentials cached. And it's uploading my files and blobs. And while that does that, I'm going to open up another terminal window. Capital D. All right, get status. All right, so if you have any questions, thoughts, anything that you want to ask, now is the time as I get this buttoned up. Git add dot git commit -m HTML field validation better git push origin master. Type that in wrong. All right, so my code is deploying on the server, so everybody can go and try it out. I've also deployed to my Git server. I have plugged my Patreon page. I have invited everybody to check out the alpha online, so please do at dracosoftware.com/dracomodel. Blah, blah, blah. And thank you very much for tuning in. I appreciate having you folks here. It is from everybody's participation in the chat room. Guys like Lucky Guy 11, who just happened to come in right at the last minute. Hey there. We can get into your JavaScript question in just a second. It's guys like you that keep me motivated, make sure that I keep doing this week to week. Next week I won't be doing this because it's 4th of July, holiday here in the US. And let's see. So, appreciate you tuning in. Go ahead and visit the Patreon page. If you can't be a patron, that's absolutely fine. Hit the favorite, hit the like. If you find some use out of this, share it with your friends. Let everybody know that this is a thing. And I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks instead of next Monday. So the question in the chat is, what is the difference between double equals and triple equals in JavaScript? And the difference is whether or not it will interpret the assignment or not. So, for example, JavaScript console, is 1 equal to 1? Yes, it is. Is 1 triple equal, absolute equal to the string that is 1? No, it is not. And that is the essence of the difference between double equals and triple equals. Triple equals is also more efficient, technically. So if you're writing code, like game code that you want to be really, really fast and that you're confident that all of the types of whatever are what you think they are and you don't need to worry about this interpreted match, then by all means use triple equals. I use triple equals by default. I very rarely ever expect to need to do an interpreted equality as opposed to an absolute equality. So Lucky Guy, hopefully that was helpful. Yes, no? It takes a few seconds for the video for them to catch up and respond and stuff. So hopefully that was helpful. Any other questions? I'm happy to field. Again, now is the time. And if we don't have any other questions, then I will bid you all a good evening. I had a wonderful time being here, and it's always great to see progress on this project. Makes me very happy. Obo40 says, well, it's something plus something, Google something. Unfortunately, these don't come across in my chat, so I'm not sure what we got going on there. Now, I will say that if you're talking about null works really weird in JavaScript. You know, 2 empty arrays. Yeah, it beats me. Yeah, empty. That doesn't surprise me. So here's JavaScript does some weird crap. 0 minus 0 is 0. 1 minus 1 is 0. 0 minus null is 0. Oh, what was it? There's one that does some really strange... Oh, is number 4? No. What is it? Is known is not defined. I don't remember right off the top of my head. JavaScript can do some funky things with numbers, so you do always have to be careful when you're doing number math. And then I've also seen when you're using, when people are using full functional type behaviors, when they're using JavaScript prototypes, you can run into some trouble because things aren't what you think that they are all the time. So those are some gotchas. But yeah, double equals and triple equals, that one's fairly straightforward. So hopefully that's helpful. And yeah, if you ever have any of these JavaScript questions, I mean, I'm happy to help and I'm happy to answer as many of those questions. But some of them also, I mean, you can do exactly what I do, which is, oh, that's right, type of null is an object, right? Null is a nothing thing. You know, there's not supposed to be anything there, and then it's considered an object. Even though it's a lack of object. Like, it should have its own type of. So you can't necessarily use type of to determine whether or not a thing is populated or not. That's a common gotcha as well. That's what I was thinking of. But there's still also some, like, type of -0 is a number. Yes, and so -0 plus 0. Yeah, but it's this -0 that, like, 0 minus 0. Okay, it's not doing it for me right now. I can't remember what it is. But, like, -0 is a thing. Right? So I can say var x equals -0. Like, -0 is an actual thing in JavaScript, and that will screw people up. Because if x is equal to 0, it's true, but if I do x triple equals 0, oh, it does actually result to true. Maybe they've fixed some of that. I don't know. Like, -0 should not be a thing, but it is. So there's lots of fun little things like that in JavaScript. You know, just kind of be careful and be cautious when you're doing some of that. In Python, each number until 255 are pre-instantiated objects. I did not know that. That's hilarious. I mean, I guess it makes sense. I'm not sure why stop at 255, but why not? All right. Well, thank you all very much for tuning in. I appreciate having you. And again, 2 weeks, we will continue. I am sure that it is faster. I just, don't know why they don't pick a larger number like 65,535, which is a common upper limit for larger integers. Anyway, so thank you all very much. I'll see you in 2 weeks, and we will keep this project up. And I hope you have fun and code some cool stuff in the meantime, and feel free to visit the site and auto-generate some code so you don't have to write some boring code. All right, take care and have a wonderful evening.